Here it's chaos. Rocky, you went the distance. You went the 15 rounds. How do you feel?
All right, Thor.
What are you thinking about when that buzzer sounds for that light? What do you think about when the 15th round when you're coming out?
Welcome everybody to the Monthly Movie Dispatch. We get together every month and talk about what movies we've seen, what we recommend, and what to avoid. What separates us from the other 100,000 other movie-related shows is that we're high school friends and have been discussing movies for 15 years. We love talking film, and we'd be doing it even if no one was listening. So it's November 2018. We're getting into the end of the year stuff. There's a lot of big movies coming out, and a lot of movies came out in the month of November. So first, let's see who's here with us. I'm Nick Moffat. We've got Brandon Bolby in New York.
Hey, guys.
Sean in Seattle.
How's it going?
And Derek in Everett.
Hello.
So how you doing, guys? What's happening?
November's awesome. Saw 15 films this month.
Jeez.
Nice.
I had 3 Thanksgiving dinners.
Oh, wow.
Wow.
Yeah, so, I mean, I feel like this is the time of year where you start hearing about what might be nominated for the Academy Awards. People on other podcasts and YouTube shows, they start, going over the big end-of-the-year movies, and it's kind of like, I don't know, I feel like you kind of sit back and you see, you have to kind of decide what to see. I mean, some things are going to hit bigger than others. There's going to be the big movies that come out like Fantastic Beasts, which we're going to talk about later. And then there's like going to be the indie ones where are they going to catch on, or are they just going to get lost? And, like Moonlight a few years ago, that came out, I think in October and November. And then that ended up winning Best Picture. Is there going to be a movie like that this year? And,
right.
Yeah, so that's kind of what we're going to be talking about this episode.
And
But,
also a lot of the top 10 lists, the early ones that we think are too early, are going to start coming out in the next 2 weeks now.
Yeah, like the December ones will start coming out, but we don't do our top 10 list until around the Academy Awards in February because, I mean, for us out in Seattle and Washington, we can't even see a lot of these big nominees until January at least. So, anyway, yeah, so we're going to start things off by doing a new segment. It's called the Best of the Year Update. So now that we're getting towards the end of the year, there's a lot of movies that we've missed over the course of the year. So these are all going to be movies that we've seen, that we've talked about before in the show, but it's going to be like a reminder that these are some of the biggest movies of the year that will end up on end of the year lists. So, Sean, do you want to start us off on that?
Yeah, I have 2 movies that I saw recently, just this month, that were long overdue, or at least one of them was really long overdue. I saw You Were Never Really Here, which is... it's the Lynn Ramsey movie that came out, I think when did that come out? It came out in April, starring Joaquin Phoenix. It's a pretty incredible film. There's a lot to say about it. I don't really know what to say because just trying to give it a shout out and keep it short. But it's a beautiful film. It's really hard to watch at the same time. It's dealing with some very heavy, serious issues, and it's very nihilistic. But I feel like the runtime being only an hour and a half, it's fairly short, and it's not it's not very traumatic to sit through.
And where did you see that, Sean? Where did you see that movie?
I just saw it at home.
Did you get it on Amazon Prime?
No, I think I got it. I got it on Blu-ray at home.
Blu-ray
From
Awesome.
Netflix.
No end of the year spoilers, but if you take our Letterboxd ratings between the 4 of us, You Were Never Really Here, all 4 of us gave it 4.5 stars, and I think it's our collective number 1 film of the year so far.
Yeah.
Nice.
My only complaint about that movie is that it could have been longer. It was only 90 minutes, and that's great for a runtime, but it was concise, but it could have gone on a little longer.
But yeah, the other movie I saw was Free Solo, which I don't see a whole lot of documentaries. I usually only see a couple a year, but this one was a really, really interesting movie. It's about the free solo climber who did El Capitan. It's pretty incredibly shot. how they got all these camera angles of him climbing up the mountain by himself. Some of them were remote controlled cameras, and some of them were actual camera operators out on the mountain, kind of halfway up. It's a super intense movie that actually does a really good job of showing you the challenges of climbing, and problem solving, and the planning and the prep that goes into doing something like this. So it's both really interesting and really nerve-wracking, and it's pretty crazy to watch what he did. So yeah, those are my movies.
I loved that film.
So where did you see Free Solo, Sean?
I saw that at the Seattle AMC 10 theater.
So that still might be in
Sundance
theaters right now. So
It might be.
It's still showing in New York.
Yeah, it might still be in Seattle somewhere.
cool. So I wanted to bring up Hearts Beat Loud. I finally saw that movie, and it was really wonderful. I really enjoyed this movie. It stars Nick Offerman, and he owns a record store, and he kind of decides that he's going to close his record store. It takes place in New York City. It's very much a Brooklyn movie, and his daughter's going away to college. Like, the whole film has a sense of things ending, and Nick Offerman's character needs to move on, but he instead makes a song with his daughter, and it kind of becomes a hit. And it's there's so much good music in it, and they have this montage of recording and writing a song together, and it's so great. And I really love this movie. It's not like as fun as you might expect, because it does have the sense of kind of dread throughout that things are coming to an end, but it also is. It also was fun because it just had such great music and such great characters. And I watched that. I streamed that on Canopy. I don't know. Do you guys know about Canopy?
Never heard of it.
I don't mean to put us off the rails here on this, but I want to tell you guys about this streaming service anyway. I kind of forgot to write it in our show notes, but Canopy is pretty cool because it's this. With Filmstruck going down, that's another streaming service that just died.
Right.
Canopy is kind of a really wonderful new platform. Basically, you sign up using your library card, so it's free.
Oh,
and
yeah, I heard about this.
Yeah, it's free, and it just has indies, foreign films, and the Criterion Collection, and other classics. And you can only watch 5 movies a month, so you are kind of limited on it. But it has A24's whole collection, so every single A24 movie is on there now, and it's just pretty dope. I'm really into it. I watched The 400 Blows last night, which is a French new wave classic, and I don't know. I just wanted to tell you guys about it. It's a really great. I've got connected to my Amazon TV, so
Right.
recommend.
You can't beat free.
Yeah.
That also means that they have a lot of Kurosawa movies. You guys
Definitely
should go see.
That's how I watched Seven Samurai, actually.
Oh, nice.
So
Yeah.
anyway, I wanted to bring up Three Identical Strangers, which is a documentary we've talked about a couple times in the show already, and it's a really great story. It's about those 3 twin brothers who were separated at birth, and then they coincidentally found themselves later on, and there's a lot of crazy twists in it. Like, it goes in directions that you wouldn't expect, and the story itself is completely fascinating. But the filming, like the documentary itself, is like just okay. So I want to recommend it to anyone who likes documentaries, because it's interesting. Like, it's really a really great story, and I just felt like the documentary itself tried to do too much and tried to get a little too cute with what they were trying to do, and they probably could have done less, and it would have been a better documentary.
The story was richer than the storytelling, but the story was so good that it's worth watching for sure.
Right, totally. And I also wanted to bring up 8th Grade, the new Bo Burnham movie. And I guess it's his first directorial movie, but that's the movie that takes place in a year of 8th grade. or it's the end of a year of 8th grade, and it's getting great reviews. Everyone loves it. Everyone at the show loves it. I probably liked it less than everybody else, just because it was a little too painfully awkward for me, and there were a couple scenes that just kind of felt unrealistic. But overall, though, it had a lot of heart, and if you wanted to see what it's like in 8th grade or want to kind of relive that awkwardness in a very true, kind of meaningful way, I would recommend 8th grade.
Yeah, I almost gave that 5 stars, but I think I know what scene you're talking about. With a little bit of forcedness, I kind of dropped it down to only 4.5.
Yeah, so I got that one from the Redbox. So all of those are available now. I think I forgot to mention, I got 3 Identical Strangers from the Redbox too. So anyway, keep your eyes open for the end of the year lists that are coming up, and we'll keep we'll keep talking about the movies that we're catching up on. So now we're going to go into our short reviews of movies that have come out in the month of November that maybe we've seen in theaters or at home. But so Brandon, you're going to kick us off on that one.
Yeah, so I believe I'm the only one here who went to see Bohemian Rhapsody. This is the Bryan Singer documentary about the band Queen.
Biopic.
Oh, did I just say documentary? Yeah, biopic about the band Queen and Freddie Mercury. Predominantly Freddie Mercury. This is definitely his story here. I actually really enjoyed this movie. It's for sure is a super straightforward band biopic. It doesn't like move far from the formula, has all the typical like rises and falls and like break up climax and get back together for the band. And so it goes through all the same, motions as you'd probably expect. But Bryan Singer does bring a unique, like fun style to it. And I think it's most telling in his editing and cinematography in this movie. It's super, super playful and really well crafted. The camera is always finding fun little unique angles, and they don't linger for very long, so it can be hard to miss. But the way it moves around, the way it just shows two subjects talking when they're finally performing live, there's some really fun ways of showing the band playing that I thought was incredibly artful. But overall, it's just a really enjoyable film that kind of suffers just from being a more mundane arc that you've probably seen before.
Yeah, I've heard great things about that movie, and I've also heard just okay things about it. It doesn't seem like anyone doesn't like the movie overall. Andrew, man, he's a good friend of ours from high school. He saw it and loved it. He called me afterward and was just like, Freddie Mercury is one of my all-time heroes now. That I love that movie so much. He's just one of the best. And the worst thing I've heard about that movie is that it's basically like a Wikipedia article.
Exactly. Yeah, it's so by the books. You've seen this before for sure, and they're not showing you much of a new angle. Besides maybe its pacing, it's really well done pacing and filmmaking style. And it's got good performances, without a doubt. What's it? Rami Malek? Rami Malek has a really great performance in this film. I think they went a little overboard on his teeth and whatever prosthetics they made him put in his mouth for the whole movie. but his performance is really great. I wouldn't be surprised, now that we're talking about the Oscars, if he at least gets a nomination in there. I don't think he'll win, but it would be cool to see him in the running.
Cool. So that's Bohemian Rhapsody. I think that's still in theaters now.
Yep.
So I wanted to bring up a movie called The Other Side of the Wind. So it's a 2018 movie, but it's Orson Welles' new movie, which is funny because Orson Welles died in 1985.
So funny.
So Yeah, well,
So
it's not funny
funny.
that he died, but like, it's basically this movie got shot in the late 70s, and then there were there's some problems with the editing and the rights to it, and then Orson Welles died, and it kind of was bounced around to different studios, and people worked on it over the years, and they finally put it together and finished it and premiered at some film festivals, and then Netflix picked it up and released it on Netflix. So anyway, it's
This movie can't be in the running for Oscars or anything, right?
I don't think so. I don't think it'll be nominated for Oscars or anything. I mean, Netflix
Just like
has that.
seeing the scenario of Orson Welles winning like Best Picture in 2018 or something.
That would be crazy, but at the same time, I wonder what rule there would be that says that you can't, release a movie years and years after like you shot it and have it not be nominated.
Yeah, I mean that's true.
Because that happens all the time. Like movies get released years after they were shot and put together.
I guess the big question is, did it get a theatrical release?
I don't think so.
That's
And
all that matters. Is it's its first theatrical release.
And Netflix is trying to bust into the Academy Awards scene, with Roma and the Ballad of Buster Scruggs. Both of them are getting very limited releases in theaters. Yeah. But I know that this movie, The Other Side of the Wind, it played at festivals, but I don't think it ever got like a theatrical release. So I don't think they're going to try. I think that's part of this thing. I'm considering it for the end of the year stuff. Like, I'm going to consider it for my end of the year list.
Right.
Yeah, I think that's valid. I'd like that.
I don't think that the Academy Award is going to recognize it at all.
Oh, wait, sorry. I just want to say that I just read that Netflix is bringing it to theaters, or they have already. Yeah.
Oh. Okay.
Nice.
I mean, there's all sorts of politics with the Academy Awards, so who knows, I guess. Maybe there aren't explicit rules, but maybe people will be like, well, nah, and I don't know.
It doesn't count.
I don't know if people are even really talking about it too much either, which I feel like they should. So, I mean, I want to tell you guys about it. It's fascinating. Like, it is one of the more interesting creative movies I've seen in a long time. It kind of reminded me of like Synecdoche, New York, except this movie came out. This movie was filmed like in the 70s. It's like it reminded me of a lot of like modern movies, like Charlie Kaufman movies, or other filmmakers who kind of film things in unique ways, but Orson Welles did this so many years ago, and it's just coming out. Basically, it's one of those movies where it starts and you have to kind of like race to catch up with it, because you're so out of context right from the get-go, and you have to like race to figure out what exactly is happening, and it's silly and ridiculous. And then once you kind of figure it out, it's like, wow, this is brilliant. This is something totally unique and something you've never seen before. So, and people
cool.
are talking about how Orson Welles might have been like making it autobiographical in some ways, because I mean, like, look at it. Like, the movie is about a movie that took forever to come out, and I mean, clearly this movie took forever to come out. Like, it just, there's weird parallels of that, like that in this movie.
Nice. Definitely want to check that out before the end of the year. This sounds great.
Sorry, where did you watch it again?
It's on Netflix, so it's
awesome.
It was one of those Netflix originals that's straight on Netflix. So there's also a documentary about what happened, like why it took so long for that to come out.
Similar to their Animal House release they did of the film and the documentary at the same time. It's kind of a cool system.
Yeah, totally. Anyway, so that's The Other Side of the Wind. I gave it 4.5 stars. So it's up there, one of my favorite movies of the year. I mean, I don't think everyone will love it, but I think you guys will. So,
all right.
So who's next? Sean, what do you got?
I saw a movie called Can You Ever Forgive Me, which is a movie starring Melissa McCarthy and Richard E. Grant. It's about popular biographer Lee Israel. So the deception is she starts forging letters from famous authors as kind of and starts selling them as collectibles. And it's just a movie. It's not the plot isn't too crazy. It doesn't get too out there. It's mostly just Melissa McCarthy and Richard Grant giving these pretty incredible performances and just being really funny. Like Melissa McCarthy was perfectly cast for this role. She's just hilarious, but she definitely shows another side of her acting talents. Gets pretty dramatic at points and pretty emotional, and it's really interesting.
I saw this movie as well, and it was definitely, well, I knew it was Melissa McCarthy taking like a turn out of comedy. It was much more sad of a film than I expected. Her character is just it's just a really sad person all around. Her lifestyle, her personality, everything. And yeah, her performance is really great. And the whole movie is super confident. It looks great. It's, well acted, well paced. I maybe was hoping for a little bit more of a punch at some point or another. It doesn't necessarily come too hard. It kind of stays quiet and stays simple with the plot, which was good and bad. But I definitely liked it a lot and recommend it.
So, because this was based on her memoir, so it's mostly from her perspective. Like in her memoir, she admitted that she was a criminal and forged a bunch of letters, and so this is all about it's totally from her perspective, right? And how it affected her.
Yeah, for the most part. There's there's a little bit of kind of some investigation stuff going on as well, but yeah, it's pretty much from her perspective. And
well, cool. So that's Can You Ever Forgive Me? And it's still in theaters. Brandon, you had another movie you wanted to talk about.
All right, guys. So I have a really good movie for you. I don't think anyone's seen it yet. It's called The Sisters Brothers. And I wasn't expecting too much going in because I had not heard too much word of mouth on this. But I loved this movie, guys. I gave it 4.5 stars on Letterboxd. This movie totally surprised me. It's a very it's a Western. It takes place in Northern California, Oregon type area. And it's just about these two outlaws that are getting assigned to, they're kind of hitmen. So they have one assignment they have to go down to California to take care of. And it starts out seeming pretty straightforward. But it ends up dealing with a larger cast of characters and a more slightly supernatural direction that the movie turns into. And it's super fascinating. The director of this movie is I believe a French director. His last film won at Cannes 2 years ago for this great movie called Deep On, and now he came to America and made this really good film. Has Joaquin Phoenix in it, and who's that comedic actor?
John C. Reilly.
And John C. Reilly, surprising matchup between the two, but they do a great job. The kind of morals and ethics in this movie are super dark, and the way the characters finish in the climax and what they go to, whether some are redeemed or not, is kind of up to you, and it can kind of feel a little gross because these people are pieces of shit. But I don't think it leans too hard one way or the other, and you can decide for yourself what you want to, how you kind of want to view them by the end of the film. But God, this movie is way more epic than you would think. It takes place over a large time frame and a large distance. It is really surprisingly good, guys.
Yeah, I'm really excited about this movie. I knew that it was coming out at some point, but I missed it completely when it came out. It came out in October. I was busy with horror movie month, and I mean, I didn't even, I saw your review on Letterboxd and I was immediately like, I want to watch this movie today. Like, how can I watch this movie? And I looked it up and it was like, it came out in October.
Yeah, no
so
one
it's like
talked about it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's not available on streaming.
It was even on my. I mentioned it for my most anticipated movies for that episode.
Oh, right, yeah.
I just totally missed it when it came out.
Yeah, I kind of saw it at a second run theater too, which is why I was still able to see it in November.
Yeah, I mean, so it's not available on streaming yet. It's not in theaters anymore. So I'm just like patiently waiting till I can see it. But just based on what you've said, like I'm really excited about it. So
Yep.
Isn't that a Netflix original as well?
I don't think
Sisters
so.
Brothers?
No.
No, it'd be on Netflix if it was Netflix original.
Yeah.
Netflix likes to do like, at least so far, they like to do a limited run, but then put it right on Netflix at the same time. Anyway, Derek, you've got another movie coming up.
Yeah, I went and saw Overlord. It's a new Bad Robot movie it's about like a World War II. It's a World War II. It's a war movie. But in this movie, the Nazis have like these like undead monsters and stuff like that. And so that's kind of the premise, is just like Nazi zombies. That's at least that's what it was really advertised as. I love this movie. It was so much fun. It was a lot more dramatic than I thought it would be. Like the war stuff in this movie is really, there's just a lot more of it. It's a lot less supernatural than I was expecting. I was expecting like kind of an over the top action, like horror gore fest or something. But it's really like the first 45 minutes of this movie is like, it's just as serious as Saving Private Ryan. Like it follows the soldiers that land the night before D-Day, right before the Normandy Beach battle. And it was the team that went in to destroy, or to take out some of the communications equipment that the Nazis had. So when the Normandy battle, when they stormed Normandy, they wouldn't have effective communications to bring in more soldiers and stuff like that. So that's kind of the premise of the movie. And then they find out that the Nazis are also making like these weird, they're trying to build like the 1,000-year army. So they like found out how to bring their soldiers back from the dead and stuff. But yeah, it's so weird how well directed and shot, and like this whole movie is just like, is really beautiful. Like it looks so good. And the first 20 minutes of this movie is some of the most intense 20 minutes I've seen this year for sure. It just like throws you so fast into like this battle, and yeah, it's great. The horror's scarier than I thought it would be too. It actually like goes deep into like, it gets really scary at times, and it's just such a fun mixed bag of stuff to put together.
It sounds like the advertising really tried to make it look like a light action stylized comedy.
Right. Yeah.
It's
yeah. It has
much
like
more dramatic
playful
in every
music
other aspect.
Yeah. No, it's very dramatic. It's like I said, like I'd compare it to like Saving Private. Like it goes that far into like dealing with dark like war stuff.
Wow.
That only those soldiers deal with before it even touches the horror or anything like that. It's weird, but it works really well. They pulled it all off really well. This was originally announced as a Cloverfield movie too.
Huh.
This is back in a couple of years ago. J.J. Abrams announced that Overlord was the next Cloverfield movie, and then
So weird.
yeah,
Sounds like it's much better than the one that they actually made a Cloverfield movie.
yeah.
Well, cool. Yeah, I thought that trailer looked like the Grindhouse trailer, like Werewolf Women of the SS.
Yeah, that's what I thought
Right.
it was going to be.
So you're saying
I
it was
think
much
that's what
more.
they tried to sell it as.
It was much more serious than that.
Yeah.
So that's Overlord, and I think that's still in theaters now. Mm-hmm. Brandon had one more short review, and I just totally skipped over it. So I'm sorry, Brandon. You had another movie you want to talk about?
Yeah. mid 90s, I saw at the very beginning of the month. I think I just barely missed our last podcast about it. Sean already spoke about it and liked it a lot. And I totally agree with everything he said last month. I think this is a like must see film, directorial debut by Jonah Hill. And the child actors are so impressive. Like, I can't believe they got these performances out of these kids. And the whole movie is shot with this kind of more like square, old style camera like format. Not old style, but just cheap 90s camera format.
It was like a 4:3 ratio.
Yeah, ratio. And so it gives it just this whole like really, it's a mega indie feeling film all the way through. But I saw this with my mom, and she actually like probably even loved it more than I did. She was talking about it the whole time I was hanging out with her in LA. It deals with some really heavy stuff at times, and it also like, you know, the kids are really funny to watch, but it's hard to watch these, you know, young teenagers drinking alcohol, getting punched in the face by their friends and brother and parents, and there's abuse, and it's a brutal film. You know,
The kid looks like a baby.
Kid looks like a baby, and there's all these crazy adult scenes happening to him at every moment. Highly recommended. Go see it.
Cool. So that's mid 90s. I think it's still in most theaters. So, yeah, like I was saying before, there wasn't one movie where all four of us saw that movie. So we're not going to do a spoiler section this month. But we will go in depth on what we think are probably the four biggest movies that have come out this month, where at least two of us have seen them. So, first up, I want to talk about Creed 2. So, Creed 2 is the new installment in the Rocky series. Just brief plot description. Under the tutelage of Rocky Balboa, light heavyweight contender Adonis Creed faces off against Victor Drago, son of Ivan Drago. So, I don't know where you guys are at with the Rocky series, but like last month at this time, I had seen I had seen Rocky 1, Rocky 3, Rocky Balboa, the reboot one, and Creed. And all of them kind of vary in tone and quality. Rocky 1 won Best Picture, has some big themes with social commentary. Rocky 3, at least, was like very kind of goofy, had Hulk Hogan and Mr. T in it. And I mean, for me, Creed was the best. Like Creed, Ryan Coogler directed that, and it had some great action, some really big emotions, and I don't know, I loved Creed. I don't know if you guys saw, but YouTube released a bunch of movies for free. Basically, they like got the rights to a bunch of movies and just said like, oh, they're on our website now. Like you can watch them. And yeah, there's like a few commercials, but the whole Rocky series was on there. So I was like, hey, what the hell? I'll watch some of these. So I watched Rocky 2, which was super fun. Like, Rocky 2 was, like, really, really fun. I think I preferred it over Rocky 1. Like, Rocky 1's probably better, but Rocky 2 is really fun. And then I watched Rocky 4. And so Rocky 4 is the one that relates most to Creed 2. So, I mean, Creed 2 is directly related to Rocky 4, though, because it's, the movie follows a lot of, regular story beats. It's a sports movie. You've seen this story kind of before. The big difference is that there's, it's a part of the franchise. So, it has franchise callbacks, and I don't think it has a lot of fan service, but it does have it does have fan service, and I feel like I like franchises. I like I like what they've done with Creed in making them similar to the old movies, but different enough that it feels fresh. So, even though there were a lot of story beats, it totally worked for me. It wasn't like there's a point at the end where, Rocky's music, the classic dun 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 dun, it finally comes on, except it's kind of an updated version of it, and I get goosebumps, and I'm just like jacked up and excited about it. And
I totally agree. Like when that song came in, like there hadn't really been anything fan servicey like that throughout the entire series, like even in Creed 1. But that like just totally worked, especially like thematically as kind of the Sylvester Stallone passing the torch to a new era or a new generation, that worked really well, and it gave me goosebumps as well.
And I definitely didn't think it was as good as the first one. It was by a different director, like this guy Stephen Cable Jr. He hasn't really directed much else, and you could just tell that Ryan Coogler is just a better director. Like he directed Black Panther earlier this year, and people call that one of the best Marvel movies. And like just you can tell it.
He's on another level, and like even the Creed 1, when I watched it just recently, like I was so impressed by some of the stuff that he did, not only artistically but like technically. There was like the first big fight scene in that movie, all being one continuous shot, was so impressive, and just there's a lot of things throughout that movie that I was really impressed by, that this movie didn't quite live up to, but that was also kind of fine for me. I don't think I needed this movie to work on that level.
Like I felt like it was a worthy piece of the franchise. It wasn't bad. It wasn't nearly as good as Last Creed, but it definitely fit into the franchise in a respectable way. And
and there were also there were a lot of really great moments, like some really good emotional moments throughout the movie that worked really well, that almost like overall put the movie up there pretty close to the first Creed movie. It definitely wasn't as like serious of a movie, and the plot in a lot of ways is kind of eye rolly. It's like, oh really, we have to rehash this what's his name, we have to rehash the Russian story, but it's his son now, and I would kind of normally roll my eyes at that kind of decision, but I think just the fact that it was a really well-written movie and a really well-executed movie, it looked really good. All of the boxing was top-notch, just like the first one. It worked on pretty much every level.
I mean the stuff with the Russians could have been much more eye-rolly. Like it could have been pretty bad, sure. Honestly. Yeah. But I really thought that the way they handled it, with they had this whole piece about how the Russian society pushed them away, and then once Ivan's son started winning matches and going to America and challenging Creed, they kind of brought him back in, and Dolph Lundgren was all happy to be brought back in, but his son, the new up and coming boxer, was like, Dad, these people pushed you away. Why are we doing this for them? And I thought all of that was very compelling. It's it kind of added a whole layer of you kind of sympathized with them in some way, and that was really good. And they also had a lot of personal stuff with Creed. There was him and Tessa Thompson's relationship is very believable, and he had to kind of grow a lot as a man. He had they went through a lot of personal stuff, and kind of I wasn't necessarily expecting a lot of that. So I really liked it. So yeah, that's Creed 2. That's still in theaters now. The next movie we were going to talk about was Fantastic Beasts: The Crimes of Grindelwald. So Derek and Brandon, you guys saw this movie?
It's Grindelwald.
Grindelwald. Sorry, I haven't seen it.
As we now know.
That was the big twist. Do you want to start off?
No, it's all yours, Derek.
All right. Well, first of all, I want to say I did really enjoy the movie overall. I think it's weird that David Yates has been making these movies for so long now, It's like, I think it's been about a decade. He's just been making like Harry Potter movies.
Yeah, he did like the last 4 or 5 Harry Potter movies, right?
4.
And then he did the last 4 Harry Potter movies, and then the first Fantastic Beasts and the second Fantastic.
And he's scheduled to direct all 5 Fantastic Beasts if they do it.
Yeah. And this one feels like his sloppiest. Like,
Wow.
it feels like it's his worst. Like like not even just from like the screenplay and story aside, like as far as like the filmmaking aspects of this movie goes, for some reason it seems like they've gone backwards as opposed to getting like, you know, more creative or like just doing cool things or learning from mistakes. It's like this one has the most mistakes of all of the movies, I feel like. So that was just a strange thing, and it kind of start like from literally one of the first shots in the movie. It's just like, we can talk more about this, Brandon, but the cinematography in this movie is so freaking weird, and it doesn't make any sense and doesn't like benefit anything. It's not like I don't know what they were thinking when they did some of the weird things they did in this movie, but it's a big story, and it's weird. It's a hard movie to like grade because I feel like it's almost like someone else made a good point of the Fantastic Beasts series. It's almost like it's a one book, and they're giving us a chapter at a time, or like 3 or 4 chapters at a time. So it's kind of like, this just feels like a cutout section of a larger movie. So it doesn't really have a solid beginning, middle, and end. It kind of just picks up right where the other one left off, and it just goes for a while and then ends again. And then presumably the next movie is going to pick up right where that left off. So it's just a weird... It's not a great structure for like a tentpole movie. It's almost like an episode of television or something. So... if I'm crediting it as just, this is all going to be like one big story arc across all the movies and not necessarily their own individual films that are going to meet all the other things you'd expect from most movies, then I'm able to enjoy this movie a lot more. I do like where they go with a lot of the storylines. They take some creative decisions, a lot of things there's the first movie I feel like was extremely predictable. You could, from the get-go, you kind of knew exactly where this was going, and they never really tossed any wrenches in to change that. So from the beginning of the movie to the end of the movie, you're on board with everything. You know exactly what's happening the whole time, and then the movie ends. And so that's why the first movie wasn't that engaging to me. This movie at least does there's a lot of twists, a lot of turns. Some of them don't work very well, but some of them I think work great. And I don't know, overall it was just an exciting, like there's just a lot of information in this movie and a lot of world building, and all of that I liked. And I think what they fixed from the first movie was, like, in the first movie they kind of had the two competing angles, which was, we have these fantastic beasts, we have all this fun like beast taming stuff that Newt Scamander's doing, and then we have this dark story about like abused children and like this dark lord trying to like harvest this weird energy from them and stuff. And so like those did not work at all for me in the first movie. Those two things didn't mix at all. In this movie, they, at least the beasts that they do use, they're able to keep that tone down from it being like this wild, silly, like fun romp of catching these monsters, and they keep it back in that realm of, at least it matches the tone of the rest of the movie. So while we still have that dark lord stuff, all the beasts and stuff, it's consistent all the way across, is what I'm saying. So
so much to say, Derek.
All right, go ahead.
For me, so much to say. It sounds like you kind of like aspects of this better than the first one. I think the first one is a much stronger film all the way through. And I actually rewatched the first one right before. I think you did as well. And I enjoyed the first one. I actually liked it better this time than when I saw it in theaters. and there's a lot of, the characters are incredible. This second movie is so frustratingly bad. Like, I was really sad watching this. And you're totally right about David Yates. Something happens with him. Like, the CGI, I think, looks incredible still, and it has for a long time. This movie has so many effects in it. I think the cinematography suffers from just CGI, like, flying around without any borders or limits, like ADD-ness. The camera just has, like, no limits on it, and it's just like, it kind of does that Peter Jackson-y Lord of the Rings thing that he started developing with his, like, huge wide CGI shots, but, like, does it on a super ADD Harry Potter level. Also, the editing was super frustrating. Like, it was hard to tell what would be going on, and as soon as, like, maybe a beautiful looking image would appear, it would be gone within a blink of an eye, because this movie couldn't slow down for the life of it. Okay, so some big things I hated so much was, like, J.K. Rowling's writing. I don't know if she knows how to write, like, a 2-hour film as opposed to, like, a 900-page book, as that's what she was doing by the end of her main career. She cannot figure out how to edit herself in any way, shape, or form. And she also has a problem, like, retconning herself from the first film. All three of the major climaxes of the first film are just disregarded without a single, like, care at all. Whether it's where Grindelwald ends at the end of the first film and then where he starts at the beginning of the second, and how quickly it's just, like, disregarded all that effort. Where the relationship between Newt Scamander and his main love interest, how cute it ended at the beginning of the first, and the bullshit storyline she introduced in the second to hold them apart. All the way to the abused child, and where, at the end of the first film, everyone knows what happened. Like, he gets totally desecrated, and you see a flutter of him flying off. But even so, that, like, it's just all that effort is totally disregarded in the first, like, scene of the next film, and, like, it's like the first film didn't matter at all, I guess. And so that would really suck and be frustrating watching the series through again in that sense.
Right.
And I mean, this could be so long. I don't want to bore you guys.
That's a franchise sin right there.
Yeah.
Like you have to make your actions and your plot points matter.
Yeah. And it just goes on from there with, like, I kind of hate like picking large plot holes that you're leaping over, but the movie starts that from the get-go, whether it's, like, trying to transport Grindelwald from America to Europe using a, like, horse and carriage, as opposed to, like, just teleport him in a fireplace. Like, why would you manually carry this guy across the Atlantic fucking Ocean for, like, 12 hours? That doesn't sound like a risk to anyone else besides why don't you use a fucking port key? Like, this is the world you set up for us. And, like, that is just the first, like, 3 minutes of the movie. And it doesn't stop from there. It's, like, just stupidity with the rules within its own world that never stops throughout the whole film. I could keep going, but I don't want to bore anyone. All right.
It's like she's designing these set pieces just out of, I want to see this set piece, and this is what's going to happen, as opposed to, like, really hunkering down and, like, figuring out, like, does all of this make sense? Like, is this gonna, like you do with any story, I'm sure she's done with every book. It's just like, how does this fit within the the rules that I've set up for this world, and how does...
Right.
It's like, this set piece just sounds cool, so this set piece is going to happen.
Right.
Yeah. No, I know what you mean. Honestly, I didn't even think about that. Like, I thought that opening set piece was really fun, so I never even thought about, like, there are other options for transporting him. Like, that just never even popped into my head.
Yeah. I mean, same with J.K. Rowling.
Because I was just watching a cool set piece. I was like, oh, this is cool. And sweet. Now the story begins from there, And I don't know. I think that's fair criticism for sure. I don't necessarily agree with like the relationship stuff. I think I thought it all worked great.
And then I forgot the fourth one was the human, the Muggle, and their retcon of him within the first moment you see his character return. They're just like, oh, I don't want to spoil anything. Shit. Well, it's the first scene. Do you guys care about first scene spoilers?
Nah, it's all right.
Okay.
All right.
So, he walks in and he's like, oh, I actually remember everything because like memory loss magic only affects bad memories, but it was all good memories to me. So, I'm here and I remember all of it.
Huh.
That's like the first words out of his mouth. And so
Right.
that's the fourth retcon. There's probably more, but
Well, let me ask you guys. Like, do you think the franchise is in trouble? I mean, like, it's one of those. It's one. I'm a franchise hound, which like I think a lot of America is. Like, I feel like a lot of people, even though this got bad reviews, like people are gonna see it. Like Andrew was over here the other day, and Carlos and Renee were planning on going to see the new Harry Potter, the new Fantastic Beasts movie, and he was like, don't see it. It's bad. Do something else with your date night. And they were like, well, we're going to see it. Like, it's the Harry Potter. You got to see it. And so, like, I guess, like, my two questions are, like, do you think the franchise is in trouble? And, or, like, what would you guys do differently? Like,
she needs an editor. She needs a co-writer.
Yes.
For sure.
She needs to bring in that Steve Kloves or whatever who did all of the other Harry Potter movies by himself.
Oh my God, yes. Why not? Pay him millions, please.
Yeah. Because
I didn't realize.
And they've
I didn't realize there was one guy.
too.
There was one guy who wrote all the other Harry Potter movies.
Yeah, he took one break. I think he didn't write the fourth one or something, but he wrote all the other movies.
Wow.
And she's supervised, so it should just flip. Like,
Right.
she should write, and then he should supervise.
Right.
And I think because
help
she
tone
has
her down.
ideas, she has great ideas everywhere, but she can't string them together.
It's like she
Yeah.
doesn't know structure or something.
Yeah.
Yeah.
2-hour structure.
Yeah, it's weird for me because I think maybe that's it for me when I see all these great ideas and I like the grand direction that she's going in, but for sure it's a complete mess. There's a lot of problems all over the place with it, and on the directing side too. So it's a weird, I don't know. It's a weird movie. And I think a lot of the things you're bringing up, Brandon, like I didn't like them in the first and they didn't really work for me as well. So I think a slight explanation for him in this movie was way more it was easier for me to buy into.
Mm-hmm.
So I have some numbers here really quick. So domestic, so it had a $200 million budget approximately. It made domestically $126 million, but it made $350 million worldwide for $470 million total. So it definitely more than doubled its budget. Not to mention for these movies, like as you go on, things tend to be cheaper to make a franchise like this. So,
well, and I don't know how it works. I feel like J.K. Rowling is like a solid businesswoman, and I feel like she probably, like, I don't know. I'm sure Warner Brothers is worried about losing money, but I don't think they can or will do anything to like slow the franchise down or stop it. I don't know. Like, it would be surprising to me if they, granted they're the distributor, but it would still be surprising to me if they had the ability to just be like, okay, we're done making these movies.
This movie clearly, it more than doubled its budget. It's still making money. I think the one worry that they might have is if the bad reviews, if this franchise starts, souring people to it, that the future movies are going to have less of a draw, and maybe the next movie they are a little bit less willing to spend $200 million to make it because they don't know if they're going to be able to make back all that money. So the next movie might be $150 million, or, you know, and then at what point is it like you can't make the movie that she wants to make with the budget that they're willing to give her?
Yeah.
And that might, you know, that might kind of kill the franchise. But I think right now, you know, they're probably looking at the numbers and starting to think about the future, but they're certainly not ready to cancel it by any, you know, they aren't even really thinking about canceling it at this point.
They're still making money.
But who knows? Maybe the next movie is better and it has more of a pull, and maybe it comes out at a better time. I don't know. I don't know if this movie had any real competition or anything, but
Thanksgiving, there's a lot of competition.
Yeah.
But I don't know. For me, you know, I didn't really like the first one. I just had a bunch of issues with it. I mean, I'll probably still see this movie like when it comes out on Blu-ray, but I would like to see a different director. You know, I know you guys are like, you know, big fans of David Yates and all he did for Harry Potter and stuff, but you know, he kind of joined Harry Potter when the films were getting darker, you know, and I think he had a real touch for creating that mood. But the first Fantastic Beasts, I thought in tone, like color palette, was pretty dark, and if not dark, like gray. And I don't know, I'd like to see like some fresh artistic vision come into the franchise, you know. I know I haven't seen this one, but just based on the trailer, it looked like it was kind of more of the same. And you know,
all right, movie fights. Who should direct the next Harry Potter Fantastic Beasts movie? Go.
Christopher Nolan.
Alfonso Cuarón.
No.
He should come back to the franchise. He left long ago.
Wait, I do want to say, actually, also for Nick, and I guess if anyone uses our reviews like as a gauge, this movie is really fucking dark. And it even has some moments for me that were like hard to watch on the screen, especially involving little children. So just a heads up going in.
Yeah, what the fuck was with that scene? I was so shocked.
Yeah.
Why did they put that in there? It's the darkest thing they've ever done in the series. And
they do it twice in this movie, actually.
They do it twice? God,
Yeah.
the first one is so weird.
Yeah. I don't know. I think this is like the stuff that, I think this is what J.K. Rowling likes to write. Like, I think she likes the dark crime, like, mystery stuff. And I think she's really just, like, going all out, just, like, you know, just throwing out everything she's been wanting to do. Like, I don't know. It's weird. It's unusually dark. And it's kind of like, in my review on Letterboxd, it said, like, this movie's kind of inaccessible for a lot of people, I think, because it is just so dark. It's not Harry Potter. Like, don't go in expecting any sort of relation to the franchise besides just character names. And there's no tone that's similar. It's just, it's in that magical world, but we're dealing with something completely different. And it's going a completely different direction.
Didn't she write a legitimate, like, mystery novel, too?
Yeah, she had a whole series, I think.
Yeah.
I think it might have been under a different name. But...
Yeah, it was a pseudonym for her pseudonym.
Right.
But yeah, it was a dark mystery murder. I think it was a murder mystery novel or something. HBO did
they
adapted it series on it or something.
Yeah.
Okay, so we'll talk about the movie for a while. Let's move on to the next movie. So that was the Fantastic Beasts and the Crimes of Grindelwald. That's still in theaters now. So the next movie we want to talk about is Widows. So both I saw Widows and Sean saw Widows. So I guess we're flip-flopping again. It's the new film by Steve McQueen, who's famous for doing 12 Years a Slave and Hunger, Shame, some pretty dark movies. But this one is a little different. Was at least marketed as more of a heist movie. Brief description. Set in contemporary Chicago amid a time of turmoil, 4 women with nothing in common except a debt left behind by their dead husbands' criminal activities take fate into their own hands and conspire to forge a future on their own terms. So, Sean, you want to take the lead on this one?
Yeah. I really like this movie. It wasn't the kind of genre piece that I thought it was going to be, and I think maybe the trailers even portrayed it as. But I thought the movie was extremely entertaining all the way through. It really shows, like, I know this isn't something that we've ever questioned, but Steve McQueen is such a good director. And all these, like, there are so many different ideas that are being played with in this movie. It seems like on a surface level, the movie's a fairly straightforward kind of heist thriller type movie. But there's so many different layers and so many kind of themes that are being played with, like social class and sexism and poverty and politics, current politics, and corruption, and there's so many different ideas that are being juggled throughout this movie, and he does such a good job of almost not mixing them up, but I don't know. Yeah, like juggling them is a good description for it. It's just like there's so many ideas, and it just like they all play together so well in this movie, and I think it all works really well. The performances are absolutely incredible. Viola Davis is stellar in this movie. I would definitely expect a nomination for sure. But also a lot of kind of unknown talent. Some I had never heard of. Some of them are very new. Elizabeth Debicki. Michelle Rodriguez was really good. It's just there's a lot of great talent in this movie. It looks really good too. It was beautifully shot. A lot of great kind of urban colors and a very urban color palette and kind of dark and gritty and there's a lot of really good stuff at play in this movie.
Yeah, this was definitely a really, really good movie. I didn't love it as much as I hoped I would. But Steve McQueen is such a great director, and what really impressed me about this movie was its attention to detail. There was every scene was chock full of just precision and showing exactly what he wanted you to see, and there was just a lot going on in every single scene. I loved what you said about all the themes that are happening in this movie. There's that one shot where it's like on the roof of a car, and you like drive 6 blocks, and you see like how much the neighborhoods change in 6 blocks, which it's just fantastic.
So like the scene starts the one of the main characters, Colin Farrell's giving kind of a speech in a very rundown, impoverished neighborhood of Chicago. And then in a single shot, he gets into a car and the camera's on, stays outside of the car. And within like 2 minutes and maybe 6 blocks of him driving, the camera just kind of stays on the hood of the car. You can't see into the car, but they're having a conversation in the car. And then the camera just pans over, and all of a sudden they're in a very rich, nice houses. Clearly, the drastic change between those two neighborhoods is pretty, stark.
That sounds so cool.
It's a brilliant shot.
Does he do a lot of his like anti-framing that he has been doing through all his indie films still?
I guess I didn't even think about it. I didn't notice it as much in this movie. But there's definitely some very interesting shots that he he pulls off in this movie.
So, this movie, a lot of people have been comparing it to Heat, which I know is one of Derek's favorites. So, a lot of people compare it to Heat. There's, it's a lot of crime, a lot of characters, a lot of themes, a lot happening throughout the movie. I felt like because it was so detail oriented, I wished it was longer. It was already like 2 hours and 15, 20 minutes, so it's not exactly a short movie, but I could have had it go 3 hours.
Wow.
Yeah, and honestly, that's like my problem with it is that like it could have been like it just could have been so much better if it had been allowed to have that much more of a runtime.
Just the sprawling epic.
Yeah, well, it just kind of felt shortchanged a little bit, like because things were so because there was so much detail and there's so much happening, it kind of felt a little too long in some ways. Like it being 2 hours and 15 minutes, almost like it felt too long for a genre movie. Because it wasn't really a genre movie. I mean, it was marketed that way, that it was like going to be like this heist, but the heist was only like 5 minutes. Like the heist was pretty quick, and it wasn't really the genre movie. It was too long for a genre movie, but it also kind of felt too short for the amount of detail and how big the story was going for. So.
I definitely feel like they built the movie up to have a really interesting, complex climax. Really intense climax. But the climax felt a little rushed, and it's like I think there is a trade-off there. It's like, do you have a really big, satisfying climactic scene to the movie, or do you sacrifice some of the these thematic elements or some of these character moments throughout the movie? And I think they decided to go with less of the genre piece and more of a thematic exploration of these ideas. And so I don't know. I've heard people say that they wished it was longer. I would have definitely been willing to sit for a longer movie. Because I was very entertained by it, but it's hard to say you think that a 2 hour and 20 minute heist movie should have been longer.
Yeah, I mean, Heat was a good 3 hours.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
okay. I actually haven't seen Heat.
Heat was 3 hours long. And that's like, I'm sorry, but like that's a movie people could keep comparing it to, and I'm like,
I actually did not know that.
It wasn't Heat. Like people say it wanted to be. But, that's my thing is that, like, it strove to be, like, that sort of level, and it didn't get there,
So I might have a quick fun question that I want to be, like, quick shots real quick. So this film has a lot of Oscar buzz, and even still with it not flopping with critics, everyone loved it, but with it not getting as amazing buzz as it was expected to, I think it'll still appear in a lot of places. I'm curious
box office, it didn't do as well as people hoped.
I'm curious for each of you real fast, which departments does this like excel in, and where could you see it popping up in
Viola
categories?
Davis for Best Actress for sure. Cinematography.
Mm-hmm.
Editing.
It's always hard to say because a lot of these categories only have 5 nominations, so like it's always hard to say, but like
Best Picture can have up to 10. So the question
I would
is
say
like,
it should be nominated for Best Picture because there's 10. It's definitely of like the directing is of the caliber to be nominated for sure. Cinematography is of that caliber. I don't know where it falls. Is it number 3 or 5 or 6?
Yeah,
but yeah, there's
but then
a lot
Viola
of,
Davis is the standout in this movie for
I
acting.
would say so for
That's
sure.
cool.
I mean, she always is. Like,
so
when is
good.
she not the standout in whatever she's in?
Right.
So,
Suicide Squad. I'm just kidding.
I mean, I
She
think
looked
about like
she
that
was
movie
the best part
Dowd.
about that movie.
She's the best part for sure.
She had that supporting role in Fences. where she just like cried for 3 minutes. Was that her?
Yeah.
She
No,
won Best Actress for that.
Isn't that what she did in Doubt 2, where
no,
she just cried for 3 minutes and then won an award?
Or am I thinking of a
was
supporting
great
character in Fences?
Yeah, in Fences, she was Denzel Washington's wife, so she had a pretty big role in that movie. But you're thinking of Doubt, where she really just showed up like for one scene, but that one scene was so powerful. Come on, you're dismissing it just by saying she cried.
Totally
She was
joking.
so
She's
good
amazing.
in that scene.
She's amazing.
No, I think she won. She has the record for the least screen time in a movie for winning an acting award.
Wow.
She was actually on screen for like 5.5 minutes or so. I don't know. I'm pulling.
She only
the number
got
out of my ass, but it
nominated
was-
for Doubt, it looks like.
What? Oh,
Doubt and The Help were both
could've
nominations.
sworn.
She won for Best Supporting Actress in Fences.
oh, okay, yeah.
Yeah.
I thought she won for Doubt, but never
Brand, do you have any other questions, or should we move on to the next
That's
movie?
it. That's it.
Cool. So that was Widows, and it's still in theaters now. So for the last movie, we're going to talk about The Ballad of Buster Scruggs, which is the new Coen Brothers movie, which it's a Netflix original, so it came right onto Netflix. A brief plot summary: an anthology film comprised of 6 stories, each dealing with a different aspect of life in the Old West. Brand, you want to take the lead on this one?
Yeah. So I actually had a pretty special screening of this film at Alamo Drafthouse, which is an awesome bar cinema in downtown Brooklyn. So the night before, I got a message from a friend saying, like, dude, there's a screening of this film. The Coen brothers are going to be there doing a Q&A. Like, we have to go. And so the next day I showed up early, got in line, and I got in the door and was front row for this. They had free popcorn. You got 2 free alcoholic drinks, free dinner. It was crazy.
Wow.
And you're in these
That's
giant
the dream.
recliners.
Oh my gosh.
Granted, it was on Netflix that night too. But yeah, and then after the film, the Coen brothers walked right in front of me, sat down in a chair, and a few of the actors as well, and talked through the movie for like 40 minutes. It was great. And out of all my trips to Comic-Con, I've never seen Coen brothers. I've seen a lot of my other favorite directors, but never them. So it was really special. This film, I think, is, to me, mid-tier Coen brothers. And granted, I haven't seen their other like in-between movies that don't get as much credit. So I'm guessing this one's probably more enjoyable than a few of the others that people don't put in their upper categories of their films. It was a little bit hit or miss. A few of them didn't land for me, and then a few of them that did land, I wished had maybe gone a little further, or just been longer, or maybe an entire film in and of themselves, because a few of them were so good. So it was kind of just like a little bit rocky for me, but overall, like it was a unique format to place this like episodic 6 individual stories, but in like a Western context, which I don't think we've ever really seen before. Different aspects of the Western like genre and life. And yeah, I think my favorites was, of course, the I think number 3, the guy digging, he kept calling it like Mr. Sunshine. What was it?
Mr. Pocket.
Mr. Pocket.
That was Tom Waits digging for Mr.
Oh,
Pocket.
wow. Okay. Yeah, so Mr. Pocket was definitely, it was just such a unique little story. And then the second to last one should have been a 2.5-hour film in and of itself, directed by the Coen brothers, because that was
train.
brilliant. The wagon Oregon Trail episode. Yeah, and then I think my kind of least favorite was the first and last. It was just a little bit weaker, even though the first one had some really special moments. But yeah, overall very enjoyable. Maybe would be a more casual, fun watch at home. And I probably was let down being in this giant theater with the Coen brothers. That didn't really make any sense. I don't know if that made sense to you guys. I
Well,
love
you're saying,
seeing the
like,
Coen
it
brothers.
wasn't one
It's
of
like
their
a-
best movies.
Right, and
Like-
it was made such a big deal about it going to this theater. I kind of hyped it too much for myself, so maybe that affected it a little more.
Yeah, I mean, for me, it was like, as with any anthology movie, you're going to have some parts that are better than others. Like, I don't know, it's hard, I think, to remain consistent with anthology movies, like, in quality. But the Coen Brothers are interesting because they have like 25 movies or something, and the range of tone in those movies is so drastic. Like they did No Country for Old Men in 2006. And that was, a Best Picture winning, like very serious, very dark, very existential movie. And then the next year they did Burn After Reading, which is like straight up like an absurdist comedy. So like their tone ranges, but each one of these movies is like a Coen Brothers Western, ranging in that tone that they have. Which, like, I don't know, I think most of what the Coen Brothers are so good, like anything they do is going to be better than what most people do. So yeah, I mean, I agree. I loved the Tom Waits one. I actually liked the first one a lot. Like the singing cowboy, just singing songs and killing people and stuff. Like I thought that was like a great way to kick it off. And
maybe it was just like the CGI ending of that bit really turned me off. I couldn't get into that look of what they were going for. Yeah. But yeah, it had a lot of great moments.
I kind of agree with, kind of on both sides. I was really enjoying it. And then like when the ending to that scene, to that short happened, I was just like, well, that took a weird turn. But I really like this movie too. I'm doing, kind of slowly moving on my Westerns anthology. But yeah, I really enjoyed seeing all the different, the long history of the Western genre condensed into a short little 2-hour time frame. All the way from the very old, 20s, 30s, 30s and 40s, the over-the-top Western hero doesn't have a speck of dirt on him and rides around with his guitar singing songs, to the, very existential anti-Westerns of the 70s. And it was just like, it was really cool to see. And honestly, I thought like even some of these short films are, Academy Award quality short films. Like they could, several of them, like the Mr. Pocket one and the Wagon Train. I even thought the one with Liam Neeson, the one with the play.
Gosh,
whatever
that one was
the guy
so
was
sad.
doing. Yeah,
That
it was so sad. And like those three short films, I thought could easily have been nominated for best live action short film at the Academy Awards.
I feel so weird because, and after you even listening to like the Slash Film review of this, like my critique of that second or the third short of the
orator
or whatever the
Orator,
performer
orator.
guy. Yeah, I don't think they took the ending far enough. Like, it was how depressing it was. I was for some reason like let down at how much they didn't show.
See, I actually,
Maybe I'm kind of
disagree.
I don't know.
I mean, no, I think we talked a little bit about it, but for me, it was like so much of that short film, they didn't show anything. They didn't have hardly any. I don't think they had a single piece of dialogue between Liam Neeson and that be-armed and be-legged guy throughout the whole short. It was mostly what they didn't show in that short film that was so interesting about it. And I thought that them not showing the ending really, but still knowing exactly what happened was really clever and worked really well for the short film. But yeah, I really liked it. I even liked the last one, the Stagecoach one. I just thought it was really a lot of really fun, quippy, snappy dialogue that you would almost expect in a Tarantino movie, but
Totally, yeah.
people kind of forget that the Coen brothers are often just as good at that kind of snappy dialogue as a lot of, like your Aaron Sorkin or your Tarantinos. And I had a lot of fun with that one.
Yeah, that last one kind of had elements of The Hateful Eight a little bit. Like the long carriage ride in the beginning. Well, yeah, I mean, it was pretty good. You know, it's like, it was pretty easy to watch. Like, it was kind of just like one of those nice surprises where, oh, it's Friday. Hey, there's a Coen Brothers movie on Netflix now. Well, cool. I don't know. Do you guys have anything else to add? Like, Brandon, like, what were the Coen Brothers like? Like, what were they talking about?
The Coen Brothers were way more like calm and modest. I don't know what I expected, but then I would expect a normal, like, you know, amazing filmmaker to be for 2 decades or more, 3 decades. Like the guy, every time someone asked him a question, he would kind of, you know, talk about how like much less thought he put into things than you would think he did. Like everyone was trying to ask him all these deep questions, just kind of like, you know, I don't know. It just kind of came together. Like, you know, I didn't really try very hard to make that point, but you know, and that was kind of his like way of answering most questions. I think it's just like they're just such geniuses, but they don't care, and they don't really notice. They just do what they want to do, and it just comes out the way it does.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's kind of how they've always been. I've seen a bunch of interviews with them, and they don't really give you exactly what you're looking for in those kinds of questions or in those interviews. It's like, just, yeah, they're very mellow and pretty humble about their, you know, kind of what they're going for in their movies.
It's like they have all the secrets inside themselves or something. Either they don't know anything, or they just keep all of their little secrets of what they believe inside themselves.
It's a very easy movie to watch, and it's on Netflix, so anyone can watch it. So
definitely gonna watch it real soon.
Pop it on.
Yeah, Derek, what are you doing? Come on, man.
Sorry,
Jeez,
too much God of War.
it's not like you have a baby or something.
Yeah, and you can watch it like as kind of an episodic. You can, you know, each short is like 20 minutes long, and
How
watch 2
long's
of
the whole
them and
movie?
then pause it. And
It's like 2.5, maybe 2:20.
Oh, okay.
So, yeah. Well, cool, guys. I think with that, like, we should wrap it up. Next month will be December, so, you know, a lot of big movies coming out next month. And real quick, where can we find you guys online, Brandon?
You can find me on Letterboxd at Beb, B-E-B, and on Instagram, Brandon_Bolby.
Derek?
You can find me on Letterboxd at Chicken Tack.
And Sean?
you can find me letterboxed on as Bulbinator, BULB.
Cool. So, same thing for me. I'm Mothman on Letterboxd. So, yeah, with that, so thanks for listening, and we'll talk to you guys next month.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.